there. But I want to bring Mark Mitchell on, who is our guest of the hour. Uh, Mark, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great, but apparently not as good as you with the palm trees in the background. That's nice. Strong.
I'm on scene, literally talking to sources in Florida, if you can believe it or not. But that's where they are,
Oh,
so we go. We go to it. Look, Tapper and is saying that we just didn't look hard enough at Biden, and we need to be more aggressive and find these medical records. And Trump is not telling us the truth. What the hell is this, man? Are the American people buying this?
no, I don't think so. And I think you can see it by their ratings. Just the other
Yeah.
week, I think it was the first week of May, I compared the primetime lineups. And Fox News in primetime is doubling what MSNBC and CNN do together. And so I think they've lost a ton of credibility. I mean, listen, Jake Tapper's out there today talking about how his kid plays football and is into World War II. That means he's probably on gamer chats laughing about how his dad lies for a living. That's probably what it means. Because everybody knows, man, we did the polling back in February of 22. And listen, for us to do the polling about it, it was already a thing. It was definitely already a thing. And in February of 22, 68% agreed that it's apparent that Joe Biden's mental condition is getting worse. 66% wanted him to take a cognitive test. So you're in this situation where even Democrats, like a good chunk of Democrats, were like, this isn't quite right. And then they go on MSNBC and they say, oh, he's sharp as a tack for 3 years. It's crap. And I think people were kind of holding on for November, and that it's finally maybe the dam has broken and they have no credibility. Because Tapper, I think, should just be met with brutal mockery at this point.
What was it you that said? I think it was you on X that my son realizing I lied my whole life, or something like that. Was that you that put that X tweet out?
Oh yeah, I've been dunking on Jake Tapper all morning. I mean, can you imagine? Like, obviously, the kid needs strong masculine role models if he's into World War II games, right? Like,
Oh my.
seriously.
Well, let's talk Trump's approval rating. I think you've said it's around 50%. How do you see it going up, going down, being stable? What do you think?
Well, it hasn't really, it hasn't stabilized. In April, when there's psychological operations going on, what I generally see in my polls is a lot of volatility. So we
Hmm.
might have one night where Trump's at 44 and another night where he's at 56. And you just have
Yeah.
to, keep it going and see what the average does. And it's been basically between about -4 and +6. So if you do the average, Trump, I think, is sitting about net +2, which is, oh, by the way, what he got elected by. And I think where he's going to stay. And what's, a couple of things just thinking about the psychological operations stand out to me is that you can see clear as day on the Real Clear Politics aggregate that there really was a hit on his approval rating. There really were
Mhm.
just a bunch of polls that got dropped and then they went away, and it created this blowout to about a -7.5. But if you look at Joe Biden's approval chart and look at where he was on average for most of his term, well, it's about -15. And so
Yeah.
all of this histrionic fits because people are unhappy that their billionaire overlords lost a little money in the stock market, and they put 100 articles out about Trump's 100 days. Well, nobody was putting articles out about Joe Biden at all whatsoever. And then yesterday we hit the mind blower where it's like, okay, well, maybe approval doesn't matter that much. Trump doesn't have another term coming. But Right Direction now is setting records, and we just had a 50% print yesterday in Right Direction, which is the first time ever in all of our polling that a majority of Americans now think the country's headed in the right direction. So put all the articles you want out there about Trump's approval rating. Nobody cares.
So I guess the question is, does the propaganda arm of the Matrix still work or not? Dropping all those polls. I mean, you said it may be a temporary effect, but not long term. Is that kind of how you see it?
Well, now we're just sort of just getting into gut territory. And
Yeah.
I think that what I generally see happen, and you can see this playing out, it's a psychological thing. I don't know, you probably know more about this than me, but one of the barometers I use is the subreddit on Reddit, Our
Hmm.
Politics.
Hmm.
And what I've noticed is that when the mainstream media is like winning, you go to Our Politics and the top 20 posts are all about the same topic. And when Trump's doing well, the top 20 posts are about totally different things. And that's where we're at right now. All of the posts on Reddit politics are all about totally different things. Now, I don't know if the cart is leading the horse or vice versa. I don't know if our politics is a glimpse into the psychological R&D operation of gaslighting Inc. I really don't know. Or if they coalesce around whatever they're being pushed to. But you can look, there were things being pushed, right? The ambush was being pushed, the ambush, and it didn't have any impact whatsoever. You could literally see global search volume for the word ambush on Google, like shoot through the roof all of a sudden out of nowhere. That can only be done by mainstream media gaslighting.
So we're going to have Episcopal priest on later in the show who's kicked out of the church due to his, I guess, unsupport of these kind of politics. But that brings me to another subject. Do you have any polling on the mainline churches and how they're being seen by the American people? I know that may be an outlier, but what's your gut tell you?
Well, we poll on religion more than any other pollster. It's a very big topic. About 70% of this country still identifies as Christian, and over 70% agree that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, came to earth to save our sins.
Wow,
they agree. 72% agree with that statement. It was maybe 22 or 23, but it was a high number. And then also we have a number over 70% who at least somewhat agree that religion is an important part of their daily lives. And so what we also have is what everybody calls as a major de-churching. And so people, I guess, I don't know, I haven't looked at the turnout numbers, but I think it's fair to say that across the board, people are going to church less. And so that's a strange situation. And I can only surmise that a lot of it might be because of the institutional rot. And what I can say is that the most recent time we've polled on this, it's really tough to say. Tell me what you think about Episcopals, right? It's like, no, that only applies to like 5% or less.
Right.
But what we noticed in the fall, right before the election, a man named George Barna had put out research that said that evangelical Christians were going to sit out the election to the tune of like 30 or 40 million people. And let me tell you, I don't know this man. I didn't look at his research methodology, but to be kind, I will just say I was not able to replicate his results. I showed that overwhelmingly evangelicals maybe weren't going to vote as much as Protestants, but only 8% said they weren't going to vote. And like half of them were non-citizens or ex-cons. So it's not, it wasn't an issue. But what was crazy was how big the ideological divide was between people who self-identified as evangelical Christians versus the word Protestant versus the word Catholic. The people who identified as Protestant, they said, oh, I heard the word Protestant, that's me, and they pressed the button. Those people poll like the general population.
Yeah.
And the evangelicals do not. The evangelicals are very conservative on social issues. They go to Trump like 30 to 35 points, I think the poll was. The Protestants were even less conservative than the Catholics were. I think in that poll, Catholics were Trump plus 11. There are a lot of like progressive Catholics for sure. And so what I can, again, surmise is that, listen, those religions are all teaching out of the same book. But for the way people identify to drive such a huge divide in politics means that there's other factors at play. And again, this is into conjecture, but I think it's this second religion that people are worshiping right now, which is that Trump is a threat to our democracy because the TV says so.
Well, there's definitely, I mean, I think this religion thing is not going away. I agree with you that, well, you didn't say this, but I didn't know it was that large of a number, but I think there's a groundswell of Christianity, especially among young men. You're seeing them search for something in the younger generations, especially. And the fact that the mainline churches, they're teaching out of the same book, but sometimes they're not teaching the same thing. So it's interesting to watch. I think that's not going away. I want to take a quick break. You can stay for another 15 minutes or so, can't you?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right, be right back.
contagion kit is something new. Can you tell us about that and what's in it and what it's for?
Well, the contagion kit is specifically geared towards a respiratory virus. It includes some of the medications that we've been talking about that are well known to be able to treat respiratory viruses. And importantly, it includes a nebulizer, a way to aerosolize a liquid medication so that you can breathe it into the lungs. Again, these kits are not meant to replace your doctor or a relationship with a doctor. They are not meant for you to fly solo. We have telemedicine visits available if you have any questions about the symptoms you're having. There's a booklet in there as well that supports and kind of coaches you through what symptoms you may be having from something. So these aren't meant to be a panacea to replace everything in medicine. It's a way, however, for people to feel and to be prepared, to be at the ready, to be more resilient, and to be more immune from the sorts of intrusions that we saw during COVID, where your insurance company or your own doctor or the pharmacist or the pharmacy was refusing to let people get a hold of medication.
Launched Alp. We've had 4 flavors, but we are proud to announce Alp has a brand new flavor, one of several we'll be rolling out over the next year or so, and it is Sweet Nectar. I have personally tested this product 2 at a time, and it's excellent. Sweet Nectar, the new flavor out from Alp, really, really good. Go to alppouch.com. You can order it in bulk by the pallet if you want. I have strongly recommended Sweet Nectar. And stay tuned for morning flavors.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies they will all turn out and we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home.
So we're back on the skip with Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen. Mark, we're going to talk a lot about this week about Ukraine and Gaza. And I think the Trump administration has kind of gone off track there, off the right path, in that they're getting us involved in the Gaza conflict. We had American mercenaries on the ground there. It was a disaster yesterday, really bad PR with the overrun of the aid station. And then you have, I think, bad advice coming to Trump by not realizing that, the Ukrainians just tried to assassinate Putin with 400 drones. And the fact that they responded, I'm not sure he's getting good info. I mean, what say you? What's the public thinking about all of this right
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, a family-owned and operated investment advisory practice. I'm a certified portfolio manager, and my job is to help you make better decisions with your money. One of the things we try to avoid is investing in companies that push the woke agenda. If you're invested with one of the big firms out there, there's a pretty good chance that you're feeding the beast that hates your values. Our company is 100% conservative, and we'd love to have an opportunity to work with you. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
This is a tough one, and I think you'll appreciate the nuance. I hadn't heard some of those things. My last 24 hours has been a blur about talking about right direction. For a pollster, that's about as big as news gets. And the problem is that on many things, the Americans are very smart. The street smarts saw them through largely, the Biden's years. They saw through the weaponization of government. They don't trust the media now. They're not a fan of advice from their healthcare providers. I can tell you that as well on so many things. But the problem is that there's also a very strong neoconservative bent to the people, and not because they identify as neoconservatives, but because of things like jingoism or false arguments, like we have to nuke them first, actually work on people, as is their, sort of emotional agreeableness and goodness. And so when Putin invaded Ukraine, like you could guarantee that Congress was going to get what it wanted because Americans don't like the idea of another country invading a different country. They're automatically probably going to side with the underdog, and they did. But what happened is over a year or two, as it played out and news got out there, people started to sour on it. They didn't like seeing all the money going over there, and they overwhelmingly began to think that Ukraine wasn't winning. We got to over 50% who said it was a stalemate, and we got to a plurality saying that we're sending too much support as opposed to not enough. So there was this very long period where Americans wised up. The problem is, like the war in Iraq, it's usually post facto. And I would love to see a way that Americans could get smarter on this. I do not know. But what I can tell you is on Israel and Gaza, I don't think most people appreciate the nuance of what Israel versus Hamas is. And so it's very challenging to ask those questions. And we've picked one that we're trying to use as a barometer. And the question is, who do you sympathize with more, the Israelis or the Palestinians? I think it's pretty straightforward and unloaded, and a lot of people would not like it. What I can tell you is that numbers coming out, I think early next week, say that Israel basically blew a 30-point lead. It's down to a 14-point lead right now over the Palestinians. So that's a huge movement, and it's basically on no very clear news. This is just since the fall of 24. So some of it might be because Trump's in office. Some of it might be because of the stuff Israel's doing. Some of it might even be because of the loony left-wing protests. I don't know, but it's real. And it's probably a problem for Israel if it continues.
Yeah, we're just trying to report down the middle and show both sides, and and so people can make up their own mind. But I played it in the cold open. I mean, there's they have a few hundred American mercenaries in Gaza handing out aid, and I'm like, well, how could that go wrong? So you're
one
gonna have
IED, there we go, World War III.
Exactly, and so they overran the aid station. The Americans were firing into the air and had to withdraw, and it was just bad optics all the way around. So not cool. But this Ukraine thing, I know this you're not polling on this directly, but where do you see this going? I mean, can you look into your crystal ball and what you think?
All I can give you is the context, and it's kind of weird in that despite everything we've seen, Americans still like Zelensky. I don't know why, but on some things we just know the conditioning runs deep. And this guy, to many people, he's got a high favorability rating. It was higher than Trump last time we tested it back in February or March. Not by much, but it was. And again, people say too much support, but they and a plurality say that the fighting needs to stop, but there's still a decent chunk, I forget, like 30 or 40%, that still think that Ukraine needs to keep fighting till they win this war. Now, I saw some interesting, you might appreciate this, I saw some interesting polling out of Gallup and out of IRI. And for people who don't know, I'll get into that in a second. But what's weird is that both of those organizations have been tracking Ukrainian sentiment on whether to keep fighting or not. What Gallup showed is that back in 23, I think it was, an overwhelming majority, like 70, 80%, said, yeah, we should keep fighting. We should get all the territory back. And now it collapsed to under a majority. I think it was in the 40s. In Gallup's numbers just, I think a few months ago, said, it's time to end this. But the IRI polling did not show that collapse. They still show a strong majority of Ukrainians want to keep fighting. Who is the IRI? It's the International Republican Institute with Mitt Romney on the board, which was a USAID taxpayer-funded collection mechanism and probably a proxy arm of the CIA. They want to keep fighting. So they're probably going to keep fighting, is my guess. They're going to keep telling Zelensky to punt on this.
What's the American, again, if you don't poll on these questions, just give me your gut, but I feel like Europe really wants this war to continue, especially France and Germany. You had Merz over there today saying, we're going to, Zelensky's been there 3 times. It's in Berlin recently. It's a new bromance. You had him on the train sniffing cocaine together. It's just insane. And they're saying they're going to build plants in Germany to develop the Taurus long-range, 3,000-kilometer cruise missile that can strike anywhere in Russia. They're going to build it in Ukraine because the Germans don't want to give it to them. We'll see if that happens. But I just see Europe as drifting almost toward a Fourth Reich. I've written about this a lot. And what do Americans think about that?
I mean, like, I don't even know where to begin on Europe.
Yeah.
The problem is, and this is just a gut, it's hard to figure out exactly what specific question to ask that would
Yeah.
show this, that would show the signal that we would like the result so much that we asked it again in the future to get a trend in the signal.
Mhm.
My gut is that if you ask Americans, they probably have a pretty favorable impression of Europe. I wonder if we've polled on it recently. I just don't, nothing comes to mind. But I mean, I think what we're seeing is very clearly, and this had to be explained to me, I'm not a student of such things,
Mhm.
is that the world with NATO at its center has been arrayed as a Eurasian conquest and empire building exercise. And whether or not the US is part of it, it's going to continue apace.
Yeah.
And so that explains pretty much everything we're seeing, which is like, okay, well, if US pulls its support in order to keep the conquest going, they're just going to find another source of capital. And there's a lot of other questionable things going on in Europe right now. I'll tell you what. So we probably do need to focus on that more. Yeah, I really don't have much recently.
Yeah, no worries.
Um,
You've got them arresting women praying silently outside of abortion clinics in the UK, putting people in jail, and
Yeah.
in Germany for memes. France banning Rumble. I mean, it's pretty insane, the censorship, the low-level tyranny is what I call it. And I think it's going to be a big issue because if Germany continues to do this, Trump could pull troops out and say, "Look, we don't want to be part of this." I mean, and he would protect maybe Poland and Hungary, but not Germany.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Be a
It's
big,
very
big
possible.
move.
Well, what else should the public be aware of in your polling? I've kind of forced you to talk about certain things. What do you think needs to get out?
The big message today is for Republicans. And we poll the generic ballot. If the election were held today, would you vote for a Democrat or Republican? It's not always the best measure. Like, the best measure is to poll each individual congressional race, but we don't even know who the candidates are in most of these races, right? And the news is that Democrats were up 1 point last Friday, the first time that Democrats have been up in years now in our polls. And our polls have been pretty accurate as far as the generic ballot is concerned. And so what that represents is that versus Trump's numbers, Republicans have lost ground since the fall. And we all know why. Right? And we've asked questions that prove this as well. Congress has a really horrible rating right now. I think it was only 16% of Republicans rate the job that Congress is doing excellent. That number should probably be north of 50, and it is not. And then we also asked, agree or disagree. Congress is not delivering on the mandate that they were given, and 60% of Republicans agree with that statement, and a good chunk of them strongly. And so the message is, listen, Mike Johnson, listen, I know your job might be hard. Maybe you're not the person that's cut out for that role. Maybe you are. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that right now, the population is kind of focused on other things. It's been focused on Doge. It's been focusing on the stuff that Trump is doing. But between now and 26, they're going to take stock of what's been pushed through Congress and what level of effort was being used to push it. And I think they're going to find the Republican efforts wanting. And so I know there's limitations. I know there's only so much stuff that Trump can do. I guess my only other advice is to start investigating these clowns. They're not going to give Americans what they want. Then roll them up. It was accused that Tom Tillis has made some unintelligent financial decisions. Roll him up. Get him to flip.
Well, I think I saw that there's, I'm not sure the FBI put this out, but there's 7 or 8 investigations of different congressmen already underway for that exact reason. Have you heard that or seen that?
I'm trying to think of all the things I've heard. That's the problem with this presidency, and now the fact that Twitter is the news source. I remember hearing that I think over 150 congressional members were referred to the IRS for audits from Doge. And yet I think it was only about 10 of them were Republicans. And I have to look that up. I think I remember hearing that, but I don't remember the source. That's it. Like, I probably tweeted it. Like that's the way this goes, right? In one ear and out the other. But
well, I mean, everybody, Mark's got a great feed. So what's your handle on Twitter?
Honest Pollster. It was available, and so I took it. It was available. So I hope to see everybody on Twitter. We have a fun time over there.
While I've got you, and talking Twitter, I forgot to ask you, Elon Musk, he's going after Trump this morning over big budget, deficits, et cetera, and
Was he?
combating what Doge is trying to do. Are you polling on Musk at all, on his favorability?
We did. We haven't in the last month or two. So Elon actually was doing very well post inauguration. He was polling very similar to Trump. I think he was only down Trump by 1 point net support, which is really good because people say that Trump is Mango Mussolini and that everybody hates him. And actually, the truth is that he polls higher than every other politician from a favorability perspective. Now, if you get a politician that's got like a 40% not sure, they're going to beat Trump on a net approval just because of the goodwill of humanity. But I'm saying like 50%, 52% total favorable. Not another politician comes anywhere close to that. And Elon did. And Doge beat that and got a 55%. So that's where the people are at. And because of these attacks, because of burning Teslas and Nazi Elon and stuff, he's not Teflon Don. And those numbers had an effect. I think the last time we checked, he was 44% favorability. So he lost, I don't know, I think it was in the teens of net favorability. It had an impact. It probably was affecting his stock quite a bit too. And I think what probably did it is behind the scenes, everybody realized, well, it doesn't matter how good this bill is going to be. It's going to go through because DC wants it to go through. And I think there was probably capitulation. And he's right to be mad.
It looks that way. Mark, thank you. Anywhere you want people to follow you besides X, or just
well, we stream on X too, but we have a YouTube channel, Rasmussen Rasmussen_poll on Twitter and YouTube. We're also on Rumble at Rasmussen Reports. Hope to see folks there. We're going to stream again Thursday night. We had a really lit crowd last night. Do a lot of chat interactions and talk about news and the polling, which is kind of unique. It's only for a certain type of person.
Excellent. We'll see you again. Thank you for coming on, and have you back. Take care.
All right, thanks, Todd. Great to be here.